Salvete omnes. Thanks for joining me on this dark morning, and welcome to the first video on my YouTube channel. I've been wanting to do some book reviews on YouTube for a long time, but I didn't have what I thought was the right equipment or the right setting, the right lighting, obviously, but I was thinking, hey, I'll just go with what I have. And just we're chatting about books, kind of stream of consciousness. I'm just saying what they are, what I liked about them, and then what you might like about them, what we might not enjoy in the books. Let's start with some that I have read recently, in no particular order, but they are all within the last, year, but really the last 2 months. I started reading a lot again. First one I have here is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I'm not personally on TikTok, but all of those videos obviously stream into YouTube and Instagram. This book was heralded as the next great fantasy, the must-read. I knew it was dark. Obviously, The Cruel Prince. It even says a lush and dangerous, a dark jewel of a book by Leigh Bardugo, which obviously Six of Crows, another fantastic series. So highly recommended. Although I did not necessarily jump on the bandwagon for this. I was a little disappointed with how dark it was. Now let me explain. I appreciate struggle, and I appreciate when there is some dark elements to a book, but I want there to be something worth fighting for. I want the characters to have at least some sort of moral code, and every single character in here was morally gray. It's an epic political fantasy about humans who go into the fairy realm, are kidnapped into the fairy realm, and how these two human sisters and their stepsister, who is full fae, how they survive in the political element. Now, the main character, I don't even remember her name. Anyway, the main character, she tries for so long just to make herself fit in, but eventually has to take a darker path to do that. And I just did not really care for that descent into darkness. But if you like political fantasy, if you like morally gray characters, you will probably really love this. I will probably, definitely, maybe finish it, the trilogy, because I've heard that it goes from espionage, bullying, one-on-one conflict to a more like grand sweeping war between the fairy realms, and that sounds interesting to me. So I gave this a 3 stars, but if you like political intrigue, if you like characters cutthroat, having to fight for their survival and existence, then you'll probably like this one. I also dipped into Sarah J. Maas, Throne of Glass series. These are fantastic. Is it a little tropey? Sure. Do we love the tropes for a reason? Absolutely. I say this series so far, I've only read the first 2. I say it's everything we love about fantasy: tall towers, handsome princes, dangerous assassins, darkness around the corners, characters trying to find out what the shadow creature is in the basement, classic fantasy tropes all condensed into this world. What makes this stand apart, I think, is the descriptiveness of the worlds and the characters that live in the world. Now, some of it is a little juvenile, especially the romance. You might chuckle as I did and think back to a time when you were 14 and probably would have really loved it. But it's a little juvenile in some places, but it's more just endearing at that point. So if you love just classic fantasy stories, then you will probably like this. If you are a very serious reader, this is a serious book, of course. Like, there is some heaviness to it. The plot definitely thickens, of course, but there's some, like I said, some juvenile aspects to it that you might not enjoy. But I do highly recommend it. It's super popular for a reason. The next one I read and really enjoyed was I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle. Obviously, the author of The Last Unicorn, who went silent for so long. I don't even know how long it was. 8 years. Yeah, from the beloved New York Times bestselling author of The Last Unicorn comes his first new fantasy novel in 8 years. But the cover art in here is just gorgeous. Well, the cover art, yes, but then on the inside is just so cool. If you love dragons, as I adore dragons, you will love this because it's all about dragons and the person who is sent to exterminate them, who realizes, first of all, he doesn't want to exterminate dragons. Second of all, he has connections to them that he did not first realize. And that's just the tip of the iceberg and how deep it goes. It's a lighthearted read, honestly. There's some really cool, I guess, life lessons towards the end that the characters discover and you discover with them. So if you love dragons, if you love lighthearted fantasy to just snuggle up with, this is really I would almost call it a cozy read. I know that has a lot of like trendy, clickbaity things happening with it right now, that term cozy read. But it generally is a soft-hearted fantasy with some really sweet characters and some really cool dragons. So I highly recommend. Now, there are so many other books I could talk about because I have read so many, and there's a lot more over there as well. But I want to talk about a few that I've stopped reading. I tried to read Riley Sager's Home Before Dark. I got to here. Actually, I made it to like 245 out of 300 something. I stopped reading it simply because it introduced a arc of someone being cheated on, and I hate that. I hate that. It bothers me deeply, and I don't need it. If that is introduced in a book, nope, we're done. Enough said. I'd like to read more Riley Sager, though. So if you have any of Riley Sager's that are good and don't have the cheating trope arc, let me know. Okay. I think this is controversial, but I stopped reading Powerless by Lauren Roberts. If you've never read fantasy before and you pick this up, it's going to be great. You'll probably love it. And I think that's what's happening is a lot of new fans to fantasy are coming in and picking this up, and that's awesome. I have been reading fantasy since I could read, so nigh on 20 years now, and this just felt very derivative. It's Hunger Games with powers, so why not just read Hunger Games or another fantasy book with better world building? Because I just couldn't picture the worlds. The descriptions were hit or miss. Sometimes they were so long and so descriptive and beautiful in things that really didn't matter, like the color of his eyes or the clip-clopping of the horse's hooves on stones or the blood drooling down her hand when she cut herself. But then with like the city or the greater scope of the book, there was like nothing. And I found myself being very distracted by the descriptions. Also, please don't use the same adjective or adverb 2 or 3 times in the same sentence. So I just found myself a little bit bored and a little annoyed. But if you like the Hunger Games, and if you want to see what that would look like with people who have elemental powers, this would be a great first step into fantasy. Highly recommend in that case. But not for me, because I just feel like there's better fantasy to read. Okay, and here's my dog, Lucy. Hello. Yes, you're very cute. Okay. This one I really wanted to like, couldn't get behind it. Fourth Wing, and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Dragons, super cool. Fantasy, super amazing. The world building, pretty good. I could believe it. I want to go to this war college. The romance, trash. As I jump out of frame because I was so disappointed. It hurts my heart because, again, I love dragons, so of course I wanted to read this, and the dragons are amazing. Just, Violet is amazing, and her story is amazing, and Xaden is fine, I guess. Sorry, let me turn off this timer here. Xaden is fine, I guess, but I just found the romance annoying, gross even, and unnecessary. So, hit or miss, honestly. That's it for now. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.